Okay, be honest. How many times this week have you found yourself staring at your screen way past midnight? We've all been there, right? We're literally losing sleep to a digital trap and our brains are totally paying the price. Welcome to today's explainer. If you want to understand the invisible digital forces shaping our daily lives and honestly ruining our nights, you are in the absolute right place. Today, we're unpacking a massive, highly relatable topic, our late-night digital habits. We're going to look at what doom scrolling actually is, the rise of manufactured outrage, and most importantly, how we can finally break the cycle. So get comfortable and let's dive right in.
So I want you to picture this. It's 2 a.m. Your room is pitch black, except for that harsh, glaring blue light from your smartphone screen. You are absolutely exhausted. Your eyelids feel like lead. And you know you have to be up for work or class in just a few hours. And yet, your thumb just keeps swiping. Sounds familiar, doesn't it? Seriously, why can't we just put the phone down? What are the invisible forces keeping us chained to that screen when our bodies are practically screaming for sleep? Well, that is exactly the core question we're answering today.
Let's kick things off by putting a name to this whole phenomenon, doom scrolling. Officially, it's defined as the compulsive tendency to continuously scroll through negative news or distressing content. But, here's what you really need to grasp. Doom scrolling isn't just some quirky bad habit. It's way more serious than that. Recent qualitative studies looking at university students have actually categorized this as a major maladaptive behavior. It's systematically eroding our mental well-being. Think of it as a totally failed coping mechanism. We're looking for a digital escape to wind down, but instead, we're just piling a massive cognitive load right onto our brains. Now, to figure out why we keep falling into this trap, we gotta look at the machinery running behind the screen. Which brings us to our first major piece of the puzzle, the engine of outrage. So we're going to explore the psychological and algorithmic forces that actively build the scroll you get stuck in. And that brings us to a really eye-opening term. Get this. Oxford University Press actually named rage bait its word of the year recently, noting its usage has tripled. Insane, right? Rage bait is basically online content deliberately designed to spark anger or outrage just to boost engagement. This stuff isn't accidentally upsetting. It is meticulously engineered to be frustrating, provocative, or outright offensive. It's literally designed to hijack your emotions because, quite frankly, your anger is highly profitable for these platforms. I mean, we all remember the golden era of clickbait, right? The goal back then was super simple. Just spark enough curiosity to get a click. You know the vibe. You won't believe what happened next. But wow, have things changed? We've seen this dramatic, highly calculated shift toward rage bait. Instead of tapping into just innocent curiosity, the internet now zeroes in on high arousal anger. The platform doesn't just want a quick click anymore. No way. It wants you to be so unbelievably mad that you comment, you share, and you stay locked into a digital argument for hours. So, why is anger so incredibly effective? Well, the algorithms didn't actually invent this. Human evolutionary biology did. The algorithms are just really, really good at exploiting it. First off, we have what's called a negativity bias. From a basic survival standpoint, missing out on something good is a bummer, but missing a threat, that could be fatal. So our brains are literally hardwired to prioritize negative info. Second is attentional capture. Experimental research shows that morally charged, highly emotional material literally grabs our early attention before we even have the chance to consciously filter it out. And third, moralized content. Whenever content attacks our values or group loyalties, it essentially turns our deepest, most primal instincts into raw fuel for digital engagement. But the real kicker here is exactly how platforms package this content. They use what psychologists call the slot machine pattern. It works on a system of variable rewards. Think about it. When you pull down your screen to refresh your feed, you have absolutely no idea what's coming next. Is it going to be a hilarious dog meme, a super urgent news alert, or a highly offensive piece of rage bait? Because these hits of stimulation are totally unpredictable, it creates this vicious cycle of compulsive checking. You just keep pulling that digital lever, hoping for a good outcome. But that constant emotional whiplash just leaves you totally wired and completely worn out. Okay, so we know the trap is super sophisticated, but what actually happens to us when we get caught in it night after night? Let's transition over and look at the real-world impact, the mind and body toll. No, drawing heavily on a really fascinating qualitative study that observed the late-night digital habits of university students, specifically those logging more than 5 hours of screen time a day, researchers uncovered this brilliant yet kind of tragic psychological paradox. Almost every single one of these intense doom-scrolling sessions started with a totally innocent intent. The thought process was just, hey, I'm going to take a short break to relieve some academic stress. But the reality? Well, the algorithmic compulsion took over, resulting in 3 to 5 hours of sleep delay. So instead of finding that relaxing digital escape they wanted, these students ended up with intense emotional exhaustion right at the exact moment their bodies desperately needed to recharge. And this brilliantly illustrates exactly how we get stuck in a perfect, self-sustaining loop. It kicks off right at the top with elevated stress levels. You're stressed, so you naturally seek out a distraction. Boom! That leads straight into compulsive doom scrolling. But wait, all that negative content just sparks increased anxiety and neural activation. Now your brain is particularly buzzing on high alert, so you fall into sleep procrastination. You put off going to bed. That creates a massive circadian disruption, which of course, the very next morning causes a major degradation of academic performance, which, you guessed it, spikes those elevated stress levels all over again. It's a vicious cycle. To really ground this data in reality, just listen to this incredibly powerful testimony from one of the students in the study, labeled Informant 3. They shared, "After seeing sad events or crime news, my mind feels cluttered. Instead of feeling calm, I feel anxious and find it difficult to close my eyes." I mean, wow, that perfectly captures a phenomenon researchers call emotional contagion. We're literally absorbing the distress of the content we consume online, and it's making our brains feel threatened when we are physically perfectly safe, tucked right into our beds. The multidimensional impact of all this is pretty staggering. That late-night exposure to blue light, mixed with skyrocketing anxiety, triggers severe circadian rhythm disruption. We're talking about students waking up with extreme heavy-headedness and just chronic fatigue. But honestly, perhaps the most damaging cognitive impact here is the lack of REM sleep. REM sleep is absolutely crucial for memory consolidation, meaning all the stuff you studied or learned during the day, it isn't getting stored properly. All of this culminates in a really sharp decline in morning focus and overall cognitive ability.
All right, so we've diagnosed the problem. Now let's talk solutions and how we go about reclaiming your mind.
Look, we see the mechanics of the trap and we clearly see the heavy toll it takes. But hey, we are not powerless here, not at all. Your very first line of defense is building strong technical boundaries to limit your exposure to this outrage economy. What does that look like? Well, it means setting up app timers to literally forcibly break that slot machine loop. It means diving into your phone settings and disabling those non-essential notifications so the algorithm can't just ping you whenever it wants your attention. Also, if a social platform offers a chronological feed, use it. It completely strips away that toxic engagement-based ranking that pushes all the rage bait to the very top. And maybe most importantly, ruthlessly mute or block any accounts that consistently post inflammatory content. Seriously, you have to curate your digital environment like your peace of mind depends on it, because it does. Now, what happens when you inevitably do something that just makes your blood absolutely boil? Enter the pause rule. It sounds incredibly simple, but trust me, it is profoundly powerful. If you see a post that makes you want to fire back instantly or quote tweet in a blind rage, just pause. Take one single moment. Remember, rage bait heavily relies on your immediate unthinking reflex. By just taking a deep breath, you allow that intense emotional charge to settle down. That tiny little space between the stimulus and your response, that's where you get your power back. It lets you consciously decide if a response is actually worth spending your precious energy on. Beyond just the screen itself, we really have to strengthen our internal psychological tools to handle emotional dysregulation. Step 1 here is practicing mindfulness, which really just means being self-aware of your emotions when you're scrolling, without beating yourself up or judging yourself for them. Step 2 is cognitive reframing. When your brain starts spiraling into panic or anxiety over a piece of news, gently force yourself to stick to the facts, not the feelings. Ask yourself, is this an immediate threat to me right now in this room? Often, it's not. And finally, step 3, connect with real people. Talk out your stress with a trusted friend, face-to-face or over the phone, instead of broadcasting it to the void or absorbing more negativity from total strangers online. And that brings us to our final parting thought. The content you see online, it is not a personal invitation to argue. It's a calculated tactic designed to harvest your attention. So the big question you have to ask yourself every single time you unlock that screen is this: will you donate your energy to the algorithm today, or are you going to reclaim it for yourself? The choice is entirely yours. Thank you so much for joining me for this explainer. Take these tools, set up those boundaries, and genuinely, I wish you a very peaceful, totally screen-free night of sleep. Catch you next time.